Shabbat shalom. Now, one of the interesting things that has happened to me in the process of transitioning to my first rabbinic job is that I've had to significantly update my wardrobe. Where I perhaps most naturally gravitate to t-shirts, shorts, jeans, I now have had to expand the number of khakis, button-down shirts, suits, and polo shirts in my closet to suit my new role. And I found that all my casual clothes that I had acquired before the rabbinate, I now wear pretty rarely, only on days off or around the house or when on vacation. And while the more dignified clothes are, of course, for other people to see and respect my role as rabbi at Agudis, they also help me to feel more deeply that I am, in fact, a rabbi in the community. It reminds me of a common experience I had as an actor when I got to play a character during a rehearsal or performance of a play. You rehearse for weeks, maybe with some rehearsal shoes or pants to get a little feel for the character before you get a costume. But upon putting on the actual costume for a dress rehearsal, or even just in a costume fitting, you suddenly feel yourself embodying more deeply the character you're playing, in a way you just couldn't do without the costume. Clothes in many ways do make the person. The choices we make of how to dress each day reveal some part of our role in society, our relationship with our bodies, and our own feeling of self. This Parshat Tetzaveh and our upcoming holiday of Purim both center on this role of clothes as either making us feel more deeply connected to our chosen role or giving us the opportunity to embody a character quite different from our usual selves. Now, following last week's detailed instructions to build a home for God to dwell amongst the people, the Torah this week commands a similarly elaborate uniform that the high priest and other priests wear, lichavod ultifaret, for honor and for beauty. Those words happen to be in the blessing after the Haftarah we read every week. These clothes, much like the upgraded, more professional clothing required of me in my rabbinic role, elevate the holy task of serving in the dwelling place of God and create elaborate garments to match the ornate structure of the Mishkan. These clothes help the priest rise to the elevated environment of the Mishkan and create a beauty and a unity to the project of serving God. But what exactly are those elements that achieve this lofty goal? Well, first, the garments match the colors and materials that were instructed for the tabernacle. Blues, purples, scarlets, and golds, making the high priests and lower priests extensions of the structure itself. But beyond the aesthetic unity, there are a number of elements that symbolically and physically help the high priest step into his weighty role. First, there are 2 onyx stones placed on each of the high priest's shoulders, with engravings of 6 names on each stone of the tribes of Israel in birth order. Then there is the choshen, the breastplate, which has 12 precious stones set into the gold plate with engravings of each tribe's name near the stone. Now, fascinatingly, the Torah here is explicit about the purpose of these 2 costume elements. About the shoulder stone, God explains it's so the priest will carry the names and the weight of the children of Israel on his shoulders as he serves. And about the breastplate, it says that the names of the children of Israel should be upon the high priest's heart. In these beautiful, heavy items connected to the priest's outfit, we come to understand that the priest is supposed to feel the weight of the task of representing each of the tribes of Israel spiritually before God. Additionally, he is not just supposed to take on the burden of being their representative, but also to feel the love for the people as he serves. These clothes emphasize the horizontal connection of the relationship between the high priest and the people. On one hand, there is a weight to the responsibility of serving them, but the priest should also feel a loving, caring connection for the people to be able to serve them properly. The burden and the joy of serving are all reflected symbolically and physically in the high priest's clothes on his body. But the symbolic apparel doesn't end with his connection between leadership and the people. While this high priest is decked out in the most precious jewels and beautiful, colorful clothes, there could be seen perhaps to be a danger that his leadership becomes solely about his own stature or that of the people as the ultimate source of power. Perhaps because of this danger, the Kohen Gadol must wear a golden headband called the tzitz, upon which is written the words, "Holiness to or for Adonai." Now the message is a bit ambiguous. Does it mean that all the holy actions of the high priest that the high priest engages in should be for Adonai? Or is it possessive, that God is the sole owner of all holiness? Read either way, the message of the tzitz placed above both the breastplate and the shoulder stones is that the central aim of Aaron's service must be for God's sake. All the holiness to be found in this temporary dwelling place is due to God's presence abiding in it. It's not solely a vehicle of satisfying the spiritual ritual needs of the people. The priests must not lose sight at the center of the project, and the only source of holiness is God. Placed on the top of the forehead, it is a symbolic reminder that all thoughts and intentions in the sanctuary must be centered on God. Now, combined together, these three elements, breastplate, shoulder stones, and headpiece, all come together to physically impart on the Kohen Gadol his need to represent the people, the weight and the love involved in doing so, and ultimately the central aim and reason for the Mishkan and the priestly service in it, to forge a relationship with the holiness of the divine. These clothes serve as a highly symbolic and elevated platform for setting the intentions of the high priest during his divine service. To twist an old expression a bit, the clothes make the Kohen. Yet in a kind of parallel, distorted version of this process, on Purim, we dress up as people, characters, animals, or otherwise that are vastly different from our usual selves. My teacher, Rabbi Joel Levy, from the conservative yeshiva in Jerusalem, encourages his students to both dress up as someone completely distinct from our usual selves, but also as someone who contains a part of your personality that you don't usually let show. Now, behind that teaching, I think, is the message that we make daily choices to be the person or serve the roles that define who we are. The person we are, however, could be vastly altered if we allowed ourselves to embrace other choices, those that scare us but also attract us. Purim is a day-long opportunity to embrace that road not taken. To be a person we're not usually willing or able to accept the consequences of embracing. We force ourselves out of our comfort zones to recognize that in a different costume, with a different mindset, we truly could be anyone in this world. Our so-called selves, to some extent, are just a combination of circumstances, choices, and yes, clothes. With a change of costume on this day, we embrace the reality that we could have easily been different people altogether if our circumstances had been different. And so, Purim teaches us that we all have within us a Moses, an Aaron, a Miriam, and a Pharaoh. Every day of our lives, we embrace the combination of circumstances that have led to who we have become, and the most physical representation of those choices is the clothes we choose to wear. On Purim, we embrace the possibilities of who we could have been or still could be. And we do that with our costumes. And this week, as Parshat Tetzaveh precedes Purim, we are taught about the importance of clothing and its symbolism in guiding our actions and impressing our role upon us. And so thankfully, a rabbi does not require quite as elaborate garments to serve in a shul as the Kohen Gadol once did. But nonetheless, the clothes that I wear as a rabbi are symbolic of my role, sometimes distinguishing me from my congregants by dressing just a little more formally, but simultaneously helping me to fully step into the role of rabbi, to feel the weight and the love inherent in the leadership of a community, and to be guided by what God requires of me and all of us. But on this Purim, for just a day, I'll be extremely happy to leave the suits and the ties and the fancy shoes in my closet and just be a Super Mario brother. Shabbat Shalom.